Julian Camacho!
Welcome to the Turns Out podcast. I am your host, Julian Camacho, a.k.a. Jules, and with me is one of my all-time favorite people, my college roommate, Evan the King Leroy.
Here I am.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man.
Nice. Live from Texas. Well, I think it's time to thank Skype, Audacity, GarageBand, and Sony Vegas for making this podcast possible.
Big ups to software.
Can't live without them. So, all right. So this is our first episode of what's going to be, I think, a multi-part series entitled Television. Turns out we're in a golden age.
We are.
Absolutely. And for this segment, we're going to talk. For this episode, we're going to talk about dramatic series that have emerged ever since. I would say HBO is the pioneer of the quality 1 hour series. First, of course, starting off with their very first series, Oz. However, so good. Great character development. And it sort of laid the foundation for this idea where it's kind of what soap operas have been doing for forever, except they have shitty writers and shitty actors, so there's no really, there's very little room there for credit. It was Oz that took it to that. Obviously, HBO doesn't need to have censorship, so it was a very graphic show. And a lot of that was like, oh, it's like nothing you've ever seen before on television.
Lots of violence and gay sex.
Lots of violence, lots of sodomy.
Who would have thought? All you needed to start the golden age was just a little bit of sodomy.
I mean, a little bit of sodomy makes the medicine go down. That's what I've always said. But I believe though the full credit that goes to spreading the idea of a 1 hour show that everyone, because Oz had relatively low ratings. Not everyone had HBO, and
I discovered it on DVD.
Yeah, a lot of people are watching it, nowadays, and after it was all over and done with. But 6 great, amazing seasons, awesome ending. It was just an amazing show, and then that paved the way for Sopranos. And the reason, one of the biggest things, and it may sound irrelevant, or it may seem just like a side detail, but really, Sopranos was one of the first shows to go 16:9 in the aspect ratio. Widescreen, letterbox. For those of you who don't know the difference, basically, I don't know if you remember back in the old days, where depending on who's listening, but the TVs used to be these square boxes, and then we get these wider flat screen panels, and then TV media had to adjust. But for the longest time, not only was television analog, but it was 4:3, and now everything's 16:9. Everything's got the widescreen bars. And Sopranos was one of the first shows to do that, and it kind of same thing with The West Wing, but we'll get into that later. They were the shows that like took themselves very seriously, and it sort of gave it a wider scope, which is interesting because you're technically getting less real estate on your actual screen. Because but
it looks like a movie,
right?
So
Exactly,
it feels like a movie.
Exactly. You're watching a 16:9 image on a 4:3 television screen for the most part, but it would still feel grander because you feel like you're getting a wider scope, literally. And so, Sopranos had this incredible cast. I mean, movie quality level cast. I mean, James Gandolfini great actor. I mean, he was Brando reborn in the sense that he carried so much presence. He didn't have to say anything. All he had to do was like sit there and breathe. And
all he had to do was heavily breathe through his nose.
I was gonna say all he had to do was sit there and breathe. Granted, that was louder than most people's dialogues, but it was just a fantastic role for him, and it sort of brought these larger than life characters to life. Like it grounded everybody, and his performance of the tone and the idea of how the fuck do you organize crime. Right? I mean, if everybody is a sort of deviant from society, once you create that little society, what's going to make them deviate? And ultimately, he is the father of, he's the paterfamilias, the patriarch of 2 families, And that was the other story. It's a man divided in two. He's a father and a husband, but he's also a mob boss, and he tries to keep it all straight and analyze this fashion with a therapist. So no, it was a fantastic show. If you haven't seen it, I mean, go ahead and lift up that rock that you've been living under.
If you haven't seen it by now, you've been messing up real bad.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, but it's a good place to start. So if you're like, I never watched television, but I hear it's good now. All right, start with Sopranos. I would say the ancestors, the prequel to Sopranos, would be what's hot right now. Well, let's go over what's been here and gone. Rome and Deadwood are shows that are basically Sopranos in Roman times and Sopranos out in the Old West.
I prefer Deadwood to Rome. I know you like Rome, but I prefer Deadwood.
I love both, and I thought it's interesting. Deadwood was originally going to be a Roman show. David Milch was approaching Deadwood as a Roman story, and then when he went to HBO about it, they go, we actually have a show right now that's about to be produced called Rome. And sorry about that. It's just like shit. Well, you know what? These characters are pretty archetypal, and for the most part, the plot is quite nebulous. Because he's definitely a gardener writer rather than an architect writer. Mm-hmm. And so David Milch went ahead and just changed the setting to the Old West, and it's not really actually technically Old West because it's in South Dakota. However, it does have that. I mean, it's the frontier, right? It's so. It is.
It is the Old West. You can call it that.
Yeah. I know there's gonna be some hardcore listeners out there. Actually, it was not in the West. It was technically in South Dakota, and they're gonna.
All the geography nerds can suck it.
Yeah, they can all suck it. So yeah, I definitely I love Deadwood. I think it's got some of the greatest characters.
Ian McShane,
Al Swearingen, man, he should get paid every time anyone says cocksucker.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say
because he definitely did not.
Every other word is cocksucker.
He definitely didn't invent the word, but he sure as shit perfected it. No, definitely love his work on Deadwood, and go back and watch an old British show called Lovejoy. It's about it's like it's an antique dealer who has like the secret elusive power to authenticate any antique, and it sounds boring as shit. Except you realize that antiques translates into millions of dollars, so you get trouble with like the mob and a bunch of other shady characters, and so. It's kind of like a Indiana Jones but with more, with European antiques.
Yeah, probably what the actual Indiana Jones, Professor Jones would have been doing, not
like the safari or fucking off into the Egyptian temples or the alien. Turns out they're alien temples.
I think I would like to know how much Ian McShane got paid for Deadwood total. Compare that against how many total cocksuckers and motherfuckers there were in the show.
Okay.
And to see, how much he got paid per each one.
Right. So you want to do like a little equation here where we do like times number of episodes divided by how much he was paid, and then how many times he said cocksucker and the average mean per episode. Divided by how much he gets paid.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna. By the next podcast, I'll have that figure ready for you because I gotta do a couple web search sites, and I don't want to bore the listeners with my rapid fire typing.
Clickety clack.
With my my rat tat tat. So we got the all right. So moving forward here, I would say Sons of Anarchy is Sopranos on wheels. And that show's incredible.
On two wheels.
On two wheels, my friend. Oh, yes. I love Sons of Anarchy. I love the... first of all, I mean, it's basically Hamlet set in... But with the genius behind that is any deviations from that become this sort of... now where will they go with it? Because I would say the first season was shaping up to be that way. But by where it's going now, it could still end... within the Hamlet structure of like how it all ends. However, so far all the middle work, which has been the bulk of the show, is has been 100% original. It takes on different forms of sometimes it's a procedural, sometimes it's a whodunit. So sometimes it's like a race against time. Sometimes it's even like a sort of a peacemaking episode between what have you gangs, and it's a political show. It's about power and
Very much.
and it's fantastic because it is set in this sort of, it's a unique backdrop. For the most part, Italians and Irish mobs, even Russian mobs, have been sort of like garnering all the attention from TV producers and filmmakers. But for the first time, these bikers actually have names, and they actually have rich histories. And I love one of the things that Sons of Anarchy does, as well as we're going to get to later of Game of Thrones, is that they have this whole, several decade-long history that leads up to the show. And as the show progresses, we get more information about that background. And it just becomes...
I love that, yeah. It's kind of like the in medias res type thing.
Right, exactly. It's building almost this mythology within the universe. And it sort of... I love it when you can watch a certain amount of tension between characters, but you're not exactly sure why, and then it reveals itself as the show goes on. So it makes a repeat viewings all the more satisfying because you catch things that you didn't catch right away.
Right.
Like Piney was always a little off with Clay, but you weren't sure why. And I'm not gonna... I don't want to spoil anything, but everyone, please watch Sons of Anarchy, even if you're not into... I mean, dude, you know me. I'm not exactly what you call a motorhead.
I've said before that I will never ride a motorcycle, but I love that show.
The show's amazing because
I have a Sam Crow T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually going to get the Sam Crow helmet.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I can...
I think we should get cuts, matching cuts.
Oh, dude, totally. We'll get turns out cuts.
Nice.
And then I'll hand them off to each of my guests, and that's how. Ooh, that'd be sweet. Once I get some money.
That's a pretty good parting gift.
Dude, once I get some money, I'll definitely do something like that. Depending on the topic we're talking about, too. Like if it's some turns out merchandise. Let me put that in the scratch pad. Okay, excellent. Anyway, love Sons of... and another great thing about these shows, including Deadwood, Rome, and Sopranos, and Sons of Anarchy, and eventually I'm going to get into Boardwalk Empire. What I love about all these shows is that a lot of... Even though they're all typically testosterone, manly shows, a big source of the strength of these shows are the women. Like, they are...
very powerful women.
Gemma, Polly Walker's character in Rome... even the fucking, what's a prostitute's name from Deadwood?
I don't remember, but I was thinking
it's like Peggy or
not the prostitute, but
obviously Molly Parker.
Yeah.
The widow, of course. She opened up the first bank in Deadwood, and she's the one who ends up keeping the lands for the gold mining, and she ends up almost basically turning. I mean, she ends up turning the direction of the entire show based on her decisions. So they're not just these damsel in distresses. They're not just these spider women that you can never really trust. It's these actual full-fledged out characters that are complex, and sometimes they benefit the lead characters. Sometimes they're the foils for lead characters. However, they're always complex. They always have these sort of multifaceted reasons for doing things, and I think it's been a great... Because, before that, TV's strong women were basically males with breasts. I mean, Xena... I would say Xena or even Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. A lot of times these are characters that aren't... Their strength isn't specifically feminine. It's just... a lot of these are male traits.
It's just strength.
Right. It's just male traits, whether it's a certain type of intelligence that's been previously... I find it a little more sexist when it's like the super mega hot doctor with these glasses who clearly doesn't know what the fuck she's talking. Denise Richards is a physicist, a nuclear physicist.
Looks like Christmas comes early.
Yeah. I'm a nuclear physicist. I'm smart, therefore it's not sexist when I'm like running around with like my fucking wet t-shirts, my nipples showing. It's just like, come on, dude, you're not leveling the playing field here. You're just basically saying you can do anything you want if you're hot. Whereas, I'd say that these characters weren't beautiful on these shows, respectively. Especially give me some of that Molly Parker, yum yum.
Oh,
but
yeah, yum,
the oh yes, these characters had the sort of strength that only a woman could have. And by that I mean there's certain patience and endurance and a certain level of just dignity in spite of how the setting or the structure of the patriarch is. Best example is Gemma, because
I was just gonna say she's kind of the matriarch, keeper of the family secrets, but at the same time she's not gonna think twice about popping the cap.
Dude, she holds more sway, I would say, than Clay or than Jax, just because she kind of pulls all the strings, and it's a great truth. It's men think they're the heads of the family, but women are the necks, and they can turn them whichever way they want. And it's absolutely true. And again, I apologize for quoting My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but really, I mean, it does apply to all these characters. And we're gonna go off really quick into Boardwalk Empire and Margaret Schroeder's character. Especially in the first season, she has this awesome sort of quiet dignity about her, but she's very intelligent and she is passionate. And she's a very fierce mother, and she does what she's got to do, and she does, of course, has her limits because of the time and the setting. But the way she works within those limits are things that I don't think men can do, especially in wits and in terms of working with what you have.
Yeah.
And getting what you believe you deserve. But let's go ahead and push forward here, since we're talking about crime and punishment. Let's move on to the sort of. I mean, we're good. I was gonna hold Breaking Bad for the fourth category of lead characters that shock and frustrate us. But moving on to I think, of course, what I believe is the greatest completed show, The Wire.
The Wire is so good, and nothing comes close.
It's the level of writing. It's so authentic. The characters, I love that they cast relatively unknown, so everyone feels like a real person. Didn't they actually take Snoop off of the streets of Baltimore? Absolutely. And I believe Michael Kenneth Williams was also that was his big major. He decided to be an actor, before the show came out. But I believe a lot of these actors they're either British or they're straight from the Baltimore streets. So yeah, I mean, talk about Idris Elba or Dominic West. Who
it's kind of funny getting those two together. It's like classically trained Shakespearean actors.
Right. Who are talking about the streets and drugs. Yeah. So Prophet, you can't worry about that corner bullshit. Yeah, we gotta do business like grown folks. Idris Elba, man, fucking excellent on that show.
Game, man.
I mean, Omar, obviously the greatest character. And what's awesome about Omar, not only is he an unstoppable badass, but he has probably the most counterintuitive traits that you'd expect from a bagman or a man who's got the balls to steal from drug dealers. Baltimore's Robin Hood. He doesn't curse. As a rule, he takes his mom to church every day on Sundays, and he's gay.
Yeah.
And he sucks cock, and it's just man. I mean, I'm preparing a list, by the way, of all-time favorite gay characters in TV and film, and he's definitely number one. But at some point, and I'm not sure what order I'd put this in, but I had to put Willem Dafoe from Boondock Saints, Val Kilmer from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I love William Fichtner in what's the worst that can happen, or I forgot what movie it was with Danny DeVito and Martin Lawrence, but I think it was What's the Worst That Can Happen.
I think that is that.
Yeah. He steals from a thief, but then the William Fichtner's a detective trying to put it all together, and he's just super eccentric, but for the most part, he's a badass, and he just happens to be gay, and I hate stereotypes. That's just something about me. I can't stand. I mean, I love using stereotypes in real life because 9 out of 10 times I'm right. And
they do apply.
The overly PC people are like, oh, you can't, assume. Well, I have, and I've been 9 out of 10 right. Versus you are aiming for the 5%, 10% exception, which doesn't seem like a good way to go about life. However, I definitely leave open for that's why people ask questions. That's why people observe and ask questions before they make any judgments. But I think after a certain point, you can kind of put the puzzle pieces together, and no one should be calling the ACLU. But anyway, what I love about the best kind of characters are contradictions. These are the best kind of people, essentially. I mean, to know, to be entertained by. Sometimes they'll disappoint you, not really the best boyfriend and girlfriends. However, in a lot of ways, personality-wise, nothing's more attractive than a walking, talking contradiction. And The Wire was full of them. I mean, you have uncorruptible politicians that were but they weren't faithful to their wives, or you have these super corrupt politicians, but they were true to whatever morals they believed in. I mean, Avon Barksdale is a great example of another contradiction where he's like the last honorable street warrior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I love that episode when they go after Omar because there's a bounty on his head, and Avon Barksdale is like, whoa, you shot him on a Sunday at church? Nah, man. And then he ends up sending Omar, one of his worst enemies, a replacement for his mother's hat that was ran over in the heat of escape from the unwarranted gunfire on Sunday. So I thought that was just an excellent. It says a lot about these characters, and it just proves how fleshed out they are. You know what I mean? When you can do something, when you can watch a show, or rather, if you can read the screenplay of the show and have the names erased, but you know which dialogue is coming from because you know the characters so well, that's just amazing writing. Because these characters are so distinct, they come in all shapes and sizes and colors. And it's interesting because someone was telling me, dude, I can't understand The Wire at any point because and he says when the show goes white, it's a bunch of statistics and like political or police jargon that I can't keep up with. Or when it goes black, they talk about with the thickest, Ebonics accent and a lot of slang that I can't understand a single thing anyone's saying. And I'm like, I love that about the show. It's so authentic that it forces you to keep up with it. It challenges you. And when it does that, I feel like people put more effort to digest all this stuff, and it just makes for great television. We're going to
great show, great characters, great writing. What else more do you need?
Best, amazing acting,
some violence and gay sex.
Boom.
That's HBO, man.
That's HBO. Violence and gay sex. I mean, also a good amount of nudity, female nudity.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I kind of didn't touch upon this, but in Boardwalk Empire, man, his kind of floozy girlfriend prior to Margaret Schroeder.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, one of the hottest bodies ever. I think she's got fake breasts, which kind of puts the points down. But, I mean, dude, Polly Walker on Rome, I mean, she was a curvy gal, but my God, I could live between them. Amazing work. Deadwood, awesome nudity.
Deadwood.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
it's a requirement, but you know what?
I wouldn't call it their calling card, but
it's
sex and nudity shows up in pretty much every single HBO show.
I mean, it's to say sex and violence. Everyone says is what TV's filled with, but I think that sex and violence has been in our culture as humans since the dawn of time. I think it depends. What makes them respectable is when you have them in good context and when they're organic.
Well, yeah, this is why no G-rated films, get, nominated for any Oscars, is because, adult themes are more
interesting and more
and more dramatic.
That being said, I do believe that
violence and sex. There's a lot more arguments to be had over violence and sex than there are to be had over happiness and flowers.
I feel like as long as there's strong conflict, a G-rated movie could win. I mean, let's not forget, Beauty and the Beast was nominated for Best Film, and that was an animated G-rated film. Yeah, movie that's amazing because I love any shows or movies that the good-looking guy, the super genetically perfect guy is deep down inside just an asshole. It had some of the best villain. What I'm saying is G-rated movies can still make it through as long as there's some sort of conflict, some kind of dramatic conflict. Like WALL-E, that's one of my favorite films of all time.
Man, such a good movie.
I believe it's rated G. It could be rated PG. I'm not sure. A lot of these Pixar films are rated PG randomly, but ultimately it's about conflict or collision of opposing natural forces, which essentially is what war and sex is. Mm-hmm. Sex is, whether something's gay or straight, someone's penetrating something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, well, I guess lesbians, but then they have like the double-sided dildos, right?
Yeah, or scissoring. Well, I guess that's not really penetration.
Well, regardless of
scissoring.
Even if scissoring, actually, if you look at it, it's two arrowheads sort of crossing in the middle. So it's still a collision, which is all I'm trying to point out here is that collision, conflict, all these things are what's in great stories and dramas. And some of the best are the shows that we're going to list tonight or today, whenever we're listening to this. We got also The Shield, which I love.
Oh my God, it's such a good show. Full of great acting, that show.
Just like a series of great monologues. And I love shows that give good reason for monologues. For example, Deadwood, going back to Deadwood, the guy who, the second husband of Molly Parker's character.
Who was that actor?
The widow. I forgot his name, but he's also in Deadwood. He's become the guy who's gonna. I mean, he's also in Justified. He's the guy who's running against the corrupt sheriff, who Boyd Crowder's backing. That guy. He was in Deadwood, and a lot of his monologues comes from him talking to his dog. But they're super eloquent. They make complete sense emotionally. And I just love those little plot devices that allow you to sort of stretch out your acting chops. Same thing with someone talking to someone that can't respond. Like also going back to Deadwood, Al Swearingen talking to the skull of the of the beheaded Indian. Or in The Wire, when you have I forgot which character it was, but it was talking to a baby. And it was talking about how I think it was it was Kira. Or Kima. What's her name? Kima?
Yeah, Kima.
Kima, also a great gay character. She was putting Baltimore to bed, wishing them good night. Good night to all the hustlers and the dopers and the drug dealers and the hookers and all that with the baby next to her. But it's these great kind of private moments that make for these really great shows, and The Shield had so many of those. Oh my God! Just watching Vic Mackey, like when he was blasting, it's not a very private moment, but when he was just like punching through the wall at the waiting room because I think Lem died, or he was thinking about Lem. Someone died recently, or he thought someone died, but he was just pounding the shit out of the wall, and then his ex-wife could see him through the glass, but she couldn't hear him while he was screaming and crying, and it was just a great little metaphor for. Basically, Vic Mackey, he's basically an autistic cop in the sense that as a cop, he does all these things that people can interpret whatever they want. But in the end, for the most part, it's him trying to do what's right. I mean, he looks out for himself first and foremost. Yeah. But a lot of his actions are interpreted incorrectly, which is, I don't think it's any accident that his kids have autism, or two of his kids have autism, and they essentially what it is a communication breakdown. And so because he's spinning so many plates and he doesn't have the time to fully get into what he's doing, it's just one of those great characters, and his whole team was awesome. And obviously I'm a huge Jay Carnes fan. I love Dutch.
I love Walton Goggins. He was definitely my favorite character on that show.
Dude, so good. I'm going to call him Boyd Crowder though, because now he's become Boyd Crowder to me instead of Shane. We also I want to give props to 24 for starting for bringing back the lone badass kind of law enforcement who plays by his own rules. I mean, he's
such a rogue, dude. He's such a rebel.
Such a loose cannon.
Oh my God, dude. I remember watching, I think it was the season premiere of season 2. When Jack is interrogating someone, and he just straight up shoots him in the chest, or no?
Yeah.
Does he shoot him in the chest, or does he like...
Here's what he does. I know what you're talking about. He first of all, he just got out of semi-retirement. Yeah. And he just lost his wife. Yeah. And this is his first assignment, which is get the truth out of this guy by any means possible, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so he basically figures out that this guy is a witness for some mob, which means he used to be a mobster himself, and he's just turned state evidence to reduce jail time or whatever. And so I think he already testified or something. He was somehow useless now. So what he does is he says the only way to get in with this guy or whatever how do you prove that you killed me? He takes a fucking gun, fires the guy twice in the chest, and yells at the closest person and says, "I need a hacksaw."
That's right.
And it's just amazing.
Oh
he chops his head
awesome.
off. It's such a great introduction.
I love how Jack Bauer just inspires just like excitement in people who watch that show. One time I was getting out of work, and I used to work in this big building that had a lobby where like a bunch of people just like hung out. You know, there's food court down there. People just like hung out. I saw this one guy watching on a portable DVD player, not a laptop or anything, but actually a portable DVD player. He was watching an episode of 24, and he was like really intent. Like his fists were clenched, and Jack had just like put somebody up against a wall to like scream at him and get the truth out of him or something, right? And it's just like he just says to himself, he goes, "Yes, Jack." And there's like nobody else around. He's just like talking to himself watching this show.
That's totally what you want to say, though. I mean, I think every little boy's dream is to be able to kind of golden ticket your way into the TV screen or page master into the show and just be like his partner who happens to know the future. Dude, how... spoiler alert for all those that haven't seen 24, although I'm pretty upset at you guys for not, so here it comes. Like, how great would it have been if you were right there, like in the third episode, and be like, "Don't trust Nina Myers." Right?
Don't trust her, Jack.
Yeah, and just don't trust her.
Your wife could stay alive.
Oh my God, dude. Here, look. Here's a map of the compound. We'll get, Alpha and Beta team on each side. You just drive it down the middle. Take out the main guy. I'll rescue your family. And we should be good to go. We can call this a 24 show. We can call it 3. we can call it 4.5. We'll call it 4.5.
I was blown away at the end of the very first season of that show. Like I had never watched anything that had just like a really like depressing ending like that. Like, of course, the whole time I thought that Terry was her name, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I thought Terry was going to be alive and be saved. But I was like, What? She actually died?
Dude, it's one of those things that I think all the great novels or shows or movies have, which is that bittersweet ending. It's like the bad guy's dead, but at what cost? And I love like Lord of the Rings. When I first read it back in elementary school, I love the Purge of the Shire.
Yeah,
because it's what separated this from every single Disney thing that I've seen. It's like, holy shit. They just, they defeated Sauron, but their home is fucked. A lot of people died. Shit. It's just great. It's just same thing with, 24 smooth transition to Homeland and Person of Interest, which all those are these kind of post 9/11 shows. Rubicon, same thing. Unfortunately, we're not going to get too much into that because
I never saw Rubicon.
And it only lasted one season, unfortunately. I thought it was... Basically, where does Jack Bauer get his files from, like his intelligence? It cuts to that room, the room where those files are being built. And that's what Rubicon was about. Homeland is what if Jack Bauer turned and came back and was being scrutinized by some crazy CIA chick who turns out she's right. And brilliant. And I love Person of Interest. And I know you don't watch Person of Interest, but...
I've seen a couple episodes, but I love Homeland. Homeland is so good.
I almost don't want to talk too much about Homeland, except talk about the pilot, just because I want people to go and see it. But as far as a pilot, along with Awake, I think it's one of the greatest pilots of all time. Just because you, right off the bat, you're on the edge of your seat. There's not a boring moment. You love these characters. Mandy Patinkin, fuck yeah, he's back.
Oh, dude. So good.
And you're just like, man, this chick's got balls. Like, I like the cut of her jib.
She's got crazy balls.
Dude, right? Her balls are kind of nutty. Nutty, thank you very much. I don't think that... I never liked Claire Danes, by the way. I've always thought...
No, I never have. I still don't. Like, I don't like Claire Danes. And I struggle to like her character because she is crazy. And in one scene near the end of the season when she was crying, I think she made the worst face I've ever seen anybody make.
Well, that's a face of honest sadness, but I thought Claire Danes played it masterfully. I thought she went emotionally. She was all over the map, and the culmination of why I love her character so much is the fact that she sees things so differently and so vividly.
Yeah.
So it's like that scene where she talks about purple and understanding the significance of all the colors that she rambles on about. I'm gonna get more into that, but that for me made the character for me, and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
Sometimes is that thin line between insanity and genius, and it was one of those.
She's good.
It was the character's great, acting is phenomenal, and it's just one of those Amadeus moments where it's like, fuck, this character is so beyond what I could try to be that it was awe-inspiring as well as a little depressing, especially considering how it all went down, but yeah, dude, everyone should go out see Homeland. Person of Interest, I don't mind chatting a little bit more about, just because a Person of Interest, it's basically all your favorite crime or conspiracy movies
boiled into one.
But yeah, every episode's a different conspiracy or crime movies. But what if these main characters who are the victims of the beginning of all these conspiracy movies or a murder mystery or a crime sort of story, like it's like undercover story or anything like that. Usually the characters that die within the first third of the film that the main character has to investigate and find out why they died. Mm-hmm. Well, the show, what if those people can be saved?
Can be saved. And
who can save them? A Batman meets
Jesus and Ben Linus.
I was gonna say, yeah, exactly, yeah. But you have Jesus and Ben Linus on your head. No, I mean Reese. Jim Caviezel's character is basically Batman meets Jason Bourne. I was gonna say James Bond, but Jason Bourne is basically the American James Bond that forgot some shit and I guess went MIA. The point is, I love Person of Interest because it's got great what I call PG-13 action, where it's technically not like he doesn't kill a bunch of people, but he kneecaps them. And I'm like,
he just like subdues them.
Yeah, but like nasty and like permanent damage kind of ways. And I'm like, man, I love that the rating system is stupid enough to let it slip by it. Because in a lot of ways, permanently damaging somebody is almost worse than death, especially like paralyze them.
Yeah, dude, like a maim.
Yeah, no, dude, he fucks some people up. And I love, again, the clarity of the mission. That's one of the greatest things about Person of Interest. It's like
save this person.
Yeah.
Follow them. Make sure they don't die.
Yeah. It's make sure these people either don't die or don't turn out to be killers themselves. I also like that. I love that your potential victim could also be your potential victimizer.
Yeah. And in a couple episodes, that has been the case.
That has been the case. Yeah. So definitely, people go see the pilot. One of the better pilots that I've definitely seen. So now I think Person of Interest is a smooth transition into the sci-fi realm. Then another show that was one of the pioneers, along with 24 and Sopranos, hate it or love it, you gotta admit, Lost changed the game.
Lost, I love that show, dude. I still love that show, even though it disappointed me in the end. God, dude, I spent so much time.
We all did.
Watching that show, researching that show,
yes,
reading Bad Twin, if anybody knows what that is. Oh my god, dude! Yesterday I wore my shirt with the numbers on it.
Nice, dude. The numbers. Yeah, it's just Lost is still to this day one of the best like mythologies made on screen.
Some of it is. I mean, it's an altogether incomplete mythology, which is the disappointing part.
Yes, but it's still a world with some great tropes and some great details and some great characters. And I've compared it many times. I used to say that Lost was this this Rubik's Cube that you solve, and when you solve it, you get a key. And the key opens up
a door.
Opens up a chest. No, not even. It opens up a chest. The chest contains a map. The map leads to this underground hatch. You go inside. It's a maze. You solve the maze, and you get into a library full of books. And you open up these books of this library, and the pages are blank. And that's what it is. But ultimately, a much cleaner way of saying all that is, Lost is a maze, and it's a beautiful maze, but the cheese is rotten.
Yeah.
And yep, it's basically this big box full of question marks, and it's a great experiment. I mean, what if the show just asks questions? And so there's always a reason to kind of yell at the screen or yell with your friends or rip off your skin.
It's a box full of boxes full of question marks.
It's that Russian doll, except they don't change colors as you go deeper. They just they lose shape, and the question mark gets a little bigger. And the frustrating thing about it is that it could have been the greatest show of all time.
It could have been the greatest show of all time.
Like in the history of things on screen, it could have been the best stuff. You understand? If Lost was a better show, if it had even just like an acceptable ending, it would have been better than, for me, it would have been probably better than Game of Thrones or Batman, because it had that potential. Unfortunately, it also stacked up the tower a little too tall, and then it just kind of fell over. And when a show builds me up like that and then just disappoints me, it's that much worse of a disappointment. I often compare Lost to my children, and it was my favorite of all children, and except that one dropped out of college and got into heroin.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn.
It had so much potential.
So much fucking potential. And after all the work that I put into it, all the time, and just emotional tokens. I mean, I don't know if emotions come in certain units of measurement, but whatever it is, I exhausted them like 5 times over with Lost.
Dude, there's some episodes of that show, like any episode that is Desmond centric or
Saeed centric.
Or most John Locke episodes.
Yes, or
there's some of the best hours of TV I've ever seen.
I also love what's his name? What's Jeremy Davies' character's name? Faraday was awesome. I loved Miles.
Miles was cool.
I loved all the characters in the beginning. Sawyer's background stories are usually fucking awesome. Sawyer is still my favorite.
Sawyer's
one of my favorite rogue characters. I mean,
dude, I love that episode where
he tells Jack about
Anthony Cooper is on the island.
Yes.
And
my god, dude. Yes.
It was like, that's the kind of ending that I wish the show would have had. Was that type of like satisfaction, while kind of having the characters.
The show had a lack of the show even had a lack of a solid villain, and I felt for a show that was supposed to be about black versus white, which can sound a little boring, especially considering of the more complex character-filled shows that we have today. But that's still, we didn't hate Smoke Monster enough. In fact, a part of me hated Jacob more than Smoke Monster just because of which one delivered more torture to our main characters. Was it Jacob or was it the Smoke Monster? And I would argue Jacob.
Yeah.
Even though Smoke Monster took Mr. Echo from us, and although Mr. Echo kind of committed suicide in that sense. I guess in the end he was a smart one by leaving when he did, but I mean, just it's a lot of things failed. I'm not going to get into them too much just because it hurts to talk about. But another huge thing was clearly they changed the ending halfway through the show. Like originally they were supposed to have it. Turns out it's all purgatory, the island itself. But someone figured it out because they extended the show 3 more seasons than they were supposed to. And by the time it got around 3rd or 4th season, not even like around the end of 2nd season, people were thinking, oh shit, maybe they're already dead. And so they said, all right, being predictable is worse than being bad, I guess, so let's be unpredictable. And the show ends on a clusterfuck. However, the ride is incredible. I still recommend people to watch it with knowing that the ending's going to be disappointing. So
yeah,
I think that softens the blow. But
I would agree.
Yeah. Either way, moving forward about the Battlestar Galactica, or I guess just Battlestar Galactica. I don't know. I added old man into it. Yeah.
The Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, I guess you kids with checking out the iPod right on the Googles, or it's like, yeah. If you want to sound old, just add the to things that don't have the on them, right? Like you want, get on the Twitter. But either way, yeah, Battlestar Galactica, Adama, which one? I would say Commander / Admiral Adama, but Lee Adama's pretty badass too. But I gotta say,
He's a total badass, except for when he was fat. Then he sucked.
Yeah, he became
Fat Lee.
Fat Lee or Politician Lee were not as badass as Pilot Lee's, but dude, fucking William Adama is just such a badass. He has some of the best lines on television, and I love that it was shot like a documentary, but it was about robots in space, but they still took it seriously. And Starbuck, she was fantastic. Awesome character. Unfortunately, I would, though, paint her as basically a male character with breasts. Like, even though I love Starbuck as a character, her vulnerability, I thought, was sort of was a little artificial. And it has nothing to do with the acting. I thought it was more about the writing. The way she was written, it wasn't... it didn't have that sort of dynamic, actual female strength for female sake. You know what I mean? It was like she had man strength. Like, she had strength that more is aligned with a men's world. Whereas, I mean, again, back to Sons of Anarchy, Gemma, you know, a part of me feels that Gemma would beat the shit out of Starbuck in spite of Starbuck's military training. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gemma has the strength and love and support of her family, and she also has the cunning, and I think she's got a stronger will in a weird way. I mean, it's hard to compare the two. They're both excellent characters. However, I feel Gemma is more true to what I believe is feminist strength, whereas Starbuck is basically male strength, but with a female body. You know, and I feel like that's more reminiscent of like the 90s and the 80s. But either way, it was a fantastic show. Again, sort of like Lost, where it had a disappointing ending.
Yeah, I wasn't as disappointed in the ending of Battlestar as I was.
Nowhere near. However, it was still...
It didn't, like, ask the same kind of questions, though.
Well, it failed to answer some of them, or gave us kind of wishy-washy answers, much the same way Lost did.
Yeah.
I thought Battlestar Galactica had more pressure in the ending because the whole thing was about, like, fate. I mean, both shows had strong themes about fate, but... You know, like, there was definitely an end goal. You know, the end goal for Lost, you think, was leaving the island, but they left halfway through the show.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, the Battlestar Galactica, getting to Earth was the goal. And so, like, that, you know, the last episode should have been a little more, I thought, a little more exciting, a little wider in scope, a little more climactic.
Yeah.
And the revealing of the last models or whatever, and I don't know. It could have been handled a little more gracefully, but
I agree.
Either way, as episode to episode, punch for punch, I thought it was still one of the best shows. It's interesting because I haven't talked about these shows in a while, so it's hard for me to even recall character names. But I really loved. I mean, Six was just one of the sexiest. It's still one of the sexiest creatures.
She's so fine. I love number
of
6
all time.
If I was in Gaius Baltar's situation, I would probably betray the entire human race in order to get with.
And I would do it twice. Yeah, no, well, it's funny because he kind of does betray the whole human race, doesn't it? But no, God damn, dude, I'm just absolutely in love with Six. She and the what's the actress name again?
Trisha Helfer.
Trisha Helfer, thank you. Trisha Helfer. She has a very unique quality that she has basically model good looks, but she has the goods in terms of acting.
She's also a really good actress. Yeah.
She's a phenomenal actress, and I mean, a big part of that is the deepness of her voice. She doesn't sound like a Playboy bunny. However, she definitely has a sort of regal. I mean, she's tall and she's very angular, so of course people are going to use things like queen-like, but I feel like she really does carry that presence, yeah, and just, you know, with her eyes and the way she can shift moods between like genuinely being scary to being super hot to being both at the same time. So it's yeah, I think she's one of the. I wanted her to be a regular on a show again, or even be the lead of a show, or even start a film career, because I think she totally can do it. And
I want to see her on some more HBO shows so she can get naked.
I wanted her to play the Red Priestess.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Melisandre. However, Melisandre
Oh my God.
requires an accent. I don't know if that's slightly above her realm, but because even some of the greatest actors have shitty fucking accents. Like Anthony Hopkins has like the worst American accent. It's like the worst, but he's still a fantastic actor. Who else has a really shitty who's like, I don't think Ewan McGregor's American accent is very good.
It's average.
Tom Hardy, I know, is slightly below average, especially when you watch Warrior or Thick as Thieves.
Yeah.
It's not a very good American, or even Black Hawk Down, not a very good American accent, but one of the best actors today. So, I don't judge actors solely on their master of dialects, but it is a big aspect of acting. Pushing through what to watch today in terms of sci-fi. If you're not watching The Walking Dead and or Game of Thrones, I don't know what to do with you.
Two of my favorite shows on TV right now, dude.
Dude, The Walking Dead
good.
is getting so good right now. The Walking Dead,
It's getting great.
People were kind of complaining about the first half of the second season. I thought they had most of what I like to watch about The Walking Dead, which is the character development and the conflict, the dynamics between the characters, especially the Shane and Rick dynamic is one of my favorites. They're best friends, but they're on a collision course.
You have to keep in mind that, when people are watching this zombie, or when they're watching any sort of zombie movie or TV show, or reading a book about it, everybody always wants to know, how did it come to be? Was it a meteor? Was it a some sort of infection? Was it did it come from an animal or whatever? That shit doesn't matter. But what matters is how the characters deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
And I think that the whole group that they have has dealt with it in a very interesting way. I think that where the characters came from and who they are now is interesting, to say the least.
I love how some of them stay true to what they are, and some of those have to adapt, and both types of people end up dying.
Yeah.
And I love that. Rick has changed, but he still tries to draw moral lines. Shane has completely crossed over into survival mode at whatever cost.
Yeah.
But then, like, you have certain characters, and I'm not going to spoil recent events, like Dale, who doesn't change. He tries to stay moral and tries to maintain, civilization through the behaviors and decisions that people make today. And the biggest changes that I think we're going to see is amongst the young. So like Wayne and Rick's son, Carl. It's going to be really interesting because right now I feel like Carl could take on Wayne.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to fucking punch Carl in the face. But whatever, he's a kid. That's the other thing I love about the show is that when the characters make mistakes, it's not like the girl running upstairs when the slasher is in the house of mistakes. They're mistakes that we would have probably done. In fact, they do things that we probably would have done. We would have mistaked.
Yeah.
We would have we mistook. We would have. I don't know. I'm not sure how to phrase that, but we would have made so many more mistakes than a lot of the even dumber characters of the show.
I don't know if I would have shot Daryl when he was coming back with Sophia's teddy bear. Dude. I was so pissed off at that. What's her character's name? That blonde girl?
I forgot, but we can call her the blonde girl, the blonde
Whatever.
idiot.
I was so pissed off at that bitch.
Dude, I wanted to punch her because she had such a satisfied, I got him kind of look.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize what she'd done until after the commercial break. But it's one of those moments where you just you want to throw a table at the television because it's like, wow, the shittiest character just killed the best character.
Yeah.
And it would have been such a Ned Stark moment, which is, I think, a smooth transition
to Game of Thrones.
To what is possibly my favorite show of all time, based on the fact that I've read the books and basing on the first season and how close it is to the first book. Yeah, definitely. If they stick to it, it's gonna.
We are in for a wild ride in the second season, my friend.
So much turmoil, so much triumph, so much tragedy, and so much hope, and it's just like all wrapped into one. I love how the show just smacks your emotions around like redheaded stepchildren. But then they give you this promise, and you're not sure whether you should accept the promise, but you do so anyway because something's better than nothing. And it's just it's so good. The writing is phenomenal. And again, it's Sopranos in the Middle Ages, but it's one of these things where it's like it didn't have to be set in the Middle Ages for it to be this fascinating.
It's so much more involved than The Sopranos, though. I mean, The Sopranos existed in, what is New Jersey, that we're all familiar with, whereas, Game of Thrones exists in Westeros and, even other continents than that, which had to be, made up from completely nothing. I think that's a little more impressive.
It's definitely more in depth, definitely more involved, definitely more complex. When I say about Sopranos, I mean all the main characters are at war with each other one way or the other, and it's all one big power struggle. Mm-hmm. And same thing with The Wire. You love people on both sides of the war. Same thing with Deadwood, Rome. They have a lot of these characters. It's shows, Lost even, shows that basically is populated with Han Solos and Boba Fett's, and you're not sure who to root for when, because they'll do things that you think are unforgivable, and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that. And then there'll be characters who are fighting on the side that you want to win, but you're like, man, fucking hate this person. Even though they're fighting on the correct side, the quote-unquote correct side, I fucking hate this person. I want them to die. And then you just start to really betray your own initial feelings on certain characters. And it's just like life, where you think you know somebody, and then they'll do this, and you're like, oh man, what an asshole. But then you'll be like, oh wait, I understand now why you did it. And I don't accept. I mean, I don't condone it, but I understand. And when it can accomplish something like that, it's something special. And only in television could you do something like this. And this is Game of Thrones is my biggest argument why all the talent is getting away from film and into television. TV. Yeah, and writing and acting. When I say talent, that's what I mean by writing and acting. Game of Thrones has so far the best. The season 1 Game of Thrones is better than every screenplay that came out in the past 5 years, I think.
I would agree with that 100%, dude.
Not including the things that I'm a fan of. Obviously, I'm biased.
Well, of course, not including anything having to do with Batman.
Right, and that's again a very personal mistake. And it's setting my feelings aside. It feels like universal appeal. If people were to just give the pilot a chance, I feel like they would be hooked. And it's just one of those shows that they teach you so much about opposing philosophies and just the idea of opposing philosophies. A lot of shows, like I loved My Name is Earl. And it's a concept of karma and, being basically reinforced throughout every episode. But the themes in Game of Thrones are a lot of it is obviously just fucking luck and fate and how it just happens to turn on your end, or consequences from the decisions you made, or believing in the 7 gods, or believing in one god. And the idea of all these different belief systems all interacting in this sort of complex political arena, it's something that you just don't see very often, if ever. And, of course, if that wasn't enough, fucking Sean Bean, Kit Harington, Peter fucking Dinklage. You have some of the greatest acting.
Nobody's touching Peter Dinklage, though.
No, yeah, it just sees beyond. And even, especially the kid actors, dude. The actors for Arya and Bran, I think they're excellent.
I thought that was probably one of the biggest challenges, aside from creating this world and these places that don't exist, was casting really good child actors, and they did it.
And these are all like little Haley Joel Osments and Dakota Fannings that I think are gonna have stellar ass careers after the show.
Who is legal now?
All right, calm it down, because she's mine. No, yeah, I dude, I love Game of Thrones. And it's great even with once they do use like the CGI, it's always grounded, man. It's such restraint. Yeah. When they did those dragons, I'm like, They
Oh my
look
God, dude.
real.
I can't wait till those dragons fucking grow up on screen.
On screen, yeah, because we've all read the
When I
fifth
ended
book.
the first book, I was like, oh my God, those dragons are gonna grow up and they're gonna burn shit down.
That's the thing. I love that the show's so grounded, so that when they do finally introduce little fantasy, fantasy tropes like magic, like dragons, like the White Walkers, when they introduce these things, it becomes all the more scary because you're so involved with these characters, and you're so worried about their fucking kingdoms, and you're worried about like their families, and you're like, shit. On top of all that worry, not only do I have to worry about them stabbing each other,
but now there's like frozen zombies. What?
Fucking zombies are coming from the north, and a bitch and her fucking dragons are gonna come in and burn everything, and they don't know how important Jon Snow and Robb are. She can't appreciate how awesome Tyrion is. They're all usurpers in her eyes. They're all traitors. It's like, don't you know how cool they are? Haven't been reading the books? Yeah, no, it's so sad. It's potentially sad. I mean, the saddest ending would be, Dany versus Jon, and you're like, no, wait.
They have to be together.
I know. I want them to fall in love. I really do. But
because they're brothers and sisters.
So good. So anyway, we're kind of going a little bit of overtime here, but I think I want to close this off talking a little about some of these. What I would argue is the most favorite TV show right now, which I would think is Breaking Bad. And I left this towards the end, even though I prefer Game of Thrones for very personal and biased reasons. My the reason why I think Breaking Bad is the best show is because anybody can watch it. Game of Thrones, you got to be a fan type.
Yeah. Also, I
mean, you don't have to be, but to gravitate towards it, you have to. I also
like
fan.
Breaking Bad right now because it's hitting its climax. This next season that starts in the summer is going to be the last season.
I heard,
and the shit hit the fan basically, and now we're just waiting to see in what direction it's going to spray. Whereas Game of Thrones, if it's a mountain climb, they have just barely started.
Yeah, and so there's so much promise involved. Whereas, Breaking Bad, it's a star is about to go out, and there's gonna be a big black hole that's gonna suck everything up. Because, dude, Breaking Bad is just one of those shows where it's like, young or old, American or not, you can fucking enjoy the shit out of Breaking Bad. It's its own mini movie. It's super intense, and yet it's also funny.
Super intense.
Super like one of the most suspenseful shows I've ever seen in my life, and yet the next scene you can laugh your ass off, and it's got everything, and even the romantic aspect of it. I mean, my heart absolutely breaks with the notion of Walter White and his wife not working things out. Because their love has got them through so much, and like when you see little bouts of loyalty from unexpected places, that's just, oh my God, so
or
good.
When Jesse's girl
yes
fucking choked on her own oh my God, Walt was standing right there.
Oh my God, let's not spoil things, dude. The idea of this is if you watch the shows that we talk about, you should be nodding your head right now, but if you haven't, you should be scratching your head right now, or your chin, and you want to go ahead and check these shows out. I put Breaking Bad in a particular category of shows that I've seen a rise of, and that's main characters that we love and are frustrated with. I love Walter White. I want to pull a Constantine devil move and just rip the cancer out of him and be like, there, you're done. Now just do good. Stop Breaking Bad and start.
Go back being a teacher, man.
Instead of the final season, instead of called Breaking Bad, it's called Fixing Good.
Nice.
Or Fixing Good. Fixing a good.
Fixing to do some good.
Please, Walter, just get out. You're ahead. Just get out. Problem is, I like it. Yeah, that is the problem. Another great example of characters that we love but frustrate us with their actions and decisions. Don Draper from Mad Men. Yeah. You have the world at your fingertips, and yet you are your own worst enemy. Going back into Walter White from Breaking Bad, he totally has this in spades, dude. How many times could he have just walked away from his problems, or rather, he could have wash himself clean of the consequences of his actions, and he decides to just push deeper.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
When Gale
was his way out.
Well, when Hank is talking about what kind of genius the Gale is, and then Walter's like, I don't know, he didn't strike me as that big of a genius.
Yeah, in the dinner table scene, it's interesting how a show with gunfire and drug use, scene, the most dramatic that we watch is a dinner table scene.
Yeah,
where he gets drunk and starts to mouth off, and you're just like, no, Walt, what are you doing? Like, you feel like Mike. I'm so exhausted all the time from just like saving people from themselves, and oh boy, yeah. And same thing with House. I know you don't watch House, but basically he's Sherlock Holmes in a hospital setting, and he's one of those huge like observer types that can figure out your life story just by looking at you, and he breaks you down, and he always goes for the negative. He never pulls back any punches insult wise, and he's always very precise and gets you where you wouldn't expect. So it's like, but you said that never happens. No, I said that almost never happens. You weren't fucking listening. Like he does that, you moron, you idiot. It's like he that's the way he rolls. And he's had this like on and off again love affair. Well, I guess flirtation affair with his boss, the administrator, the hospital administrator, Cuddy. And there was these moments where she's always breaking his balls because he's always getting into trouble. But in the end, he does solve cases and he saves lives. It's that Vic Mackey, Jack Bauer thing where it's like he's breaking all the rules. He lawsuits are piling up, but he saves lives. So it doesn't matter. He's an asshole. He's a dick.
Saves the lives.
He gets the job fucking done. And that's the biggest flag that he waves. And just like, a lot of times the few times that she was vulnerable with him and he needed to step up, he like doesn't. Like this one time he was with her and he also battles addiction because he walks on a cane because he's got dead muscle tissue on his thigh. And so he suffers every time he walks. So his pain causes him to be addicted to Vicodin. And so one of these times where she wanted to help him, and they have like this kind of sweet connecting moment, he just grabs her boobs, like in a really like out of nowhere kind of way. And it's funny. It's funny for a second, but then it's just depressing because he's just building more barriers because he's a guy who presents himself as a sleazy guy, but deep down inside he's a good man. But he does a lot of sleazy stuff to the point where, okay, maybe he is kind of sleazy. But basically, yeah, it's just really heartbreaking stuff. Same thing with Don Draper from Mad Men. He's got the hottest wife on the goddamn show, and he's cheating on her all the time. And he's got the best mind for creativity, but he ends up just betraying that. And it's just like with his addiction, with alcoholism or what have you, and the need to kind of avoid running away from his problems. That's a consistent theme on the show. The man drowning, the man trying to run away, and lovely girlfriend from Sons of Anarchy who played I think her name was Rachel on Mad Men. At some point, his past caught up to him. I'm not going to spoil it, but some past comes up to him, and he decides to leave, and he wants to leave with his lover, with his mistress, or what have you. And she's like, "You're just going to leave your family? What kind of man are you?" And that's just a great, here's this badass guy who is a womanizer, fucking drinks on the job. He's excellent, super successful, super good looking, dresses well, has style, is a badass when it comes to business. But in the end, he's just a shell of a man. And it's just like, it's just this sort of tragic revelation that this sort of American dream goal that most guys have, fuck, do you really want that? And it's great. And Rescue Me is the exact same way. Tommy Gavin is his own worst enemy. And how many times have you facepalmed because he's
so many times during that show
decided to fight back or because he decided to mouth off instead of just staying quiet and letting the goods settle? You know, it's these sort of obsessed men who are unsettled in their own shit, and you root for them because they're good at what they do, but it's because they're good at what they do that they're shitty at everything else. Jack Bauer had the same problem. House had the same problem. He just breaks down everything. House is just, he like over explains and over detects everything, and obviously Don Draper's really creative, which makes him a good liar, which also puts him into trouble. And Tommy Gavin, he's an adrenaline junkie who will always risk his life to save another, but then it puts his whole team, his whole cruise life in danger. It also makes him unable to stay put in a relationship. He's always got to seek chaos.
Yeah.
These characters, they're just like these men that are only happy when they're struggling. And it's a great sort of, it's a great tragedy because it's something that we can all sort of identify with, and you know, we strive to be as good as they are in whatever we end up doing, but we just don't want the fucking consequences that comes with it. Yeah, no, it's great. But anyway, I think we covered some excellent ground here.
We covered all of our bases
for the most part for drama series. I want to just start to mention. I'm gonna go down the list of shows that if you are not watching these shows, something's wrong with you, and we can't hang until you do. So go back and please watch Oz, Sopranos, Rome, Boardwalk Empire, Dexter, Sons of Anarchy, Deadwood, Breaking Bad, The Wire, The Shield, Justified, Southland, 24, Homeland, Person of Interest, Lost, Battlestar Galactica, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Mad Men, House, Rescue Me, The Mentalist, and Treme. And also I was going to mention Weeds as far as characters that frustrate us but that we still love. Unfortunately, Nancy Botwin at this point, she only frustrates me.
Yeah, I haven't watched that show in a couple of years just because it was getting late.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know. Showtime has this whole thing with shows that are kind of dramas, but they're also kind of comedies.
Right, like Californication and other shows. Yeah. I mean, I heard they're good, but I haven't watched most of them. I don't like House of Lies. That show got really old after the first 2 episodes. But anyway, definitely watch these shows. Treme is another show that I wish we had more time to talk about, just because as far as
such a good show,
such character diversity, like The Wire, the makers of, so no surprise there, but also such diversity in subject matter, because they talk about the crime, they talk about the music, they talk about the food, everything that makes New Orleans, and it's just the show is nothing short of magic, and I definitely recommend the Treme. And The Mentalist is just a great detective show with a particular spin on a relatively familiar procedural formula. However, the way he approaches it is very unique, and I also Southland, same way. It's a cop show. Sure, we've seen many shows about cops, but not like this, in the sense that we sort of just kind of follow them around and see the day-to-day, the ins and outs of the job, which I don't think we ever get to see. It's always a case, focus on the case, but this time this focuses on the job. So the Southland's like the Shield in the sense where it feels like the first cop show you've ever seen before. But anyway, go see these shows. Some of them, most of them, all of them if you can. And so support them, because some show... Oh, God. I totally forgot to talk about Fringe, but I know you haven't watched it yet, so not much to talk about. I would say it's my 5th favorite show of all time. So if I had to put an order, I would say Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, and I'm going to include shows that are completed like The Wire. So I'm just going to submit shows that I love that are ongoing currently. I would say Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, Mad Men, and Fringe. Everyone, including you, Evan, go see Fringe.
I need to see it, man.
Awesome, dude. All right, well, thank you for coming by through the airwaves.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and we will please join us next time when we do TV. Turns out we're in a golden age comedy, and we'll be talking everything that's worth mentioning for comedy since the early 2000s.
I think it's going to be a laugh riot.
Oh, yeah. Barrel of laughs. Either way, again, thank you for listening so much. Love you guys. Don't forget to like our Turns Out page, Turns Out Productions page on Facebook. And until next time, thank you for listening. Hold fast and stay sharp.